So good morning, everyone. No, good afternoon. So I hope you have revised what we had studied till the last class. We are going to look at some of the PYQs and then we'll move on to discuss Chol Empire from South India, and then we'll move back to North again and we'll start talking about Ghazni, Gori, Rajputs, and then we'll start with Delhi Sultanate. Okay. When we'll talk about Delhi Sultanate, there we are going to discuss the prominent dynasties. Now, if we look at these topics from our examination perspective, what kind of questions have been asked? So if you look at Chol Empire, so it is important for mains as well, and it will be important from the perspective of prelims examination too. When you will look at mains questions, you will find the questions on cultural contributions of Chola rulers, and in the last 10 years you can find 3 questions in mains. Now when it comes to prelims, are there questions? You will not find questions as such in the last few years, but this topic remains very important as a lot of weightage is being given in the mains examination. So we should give that in mind too. Okay, now what becomes important here? Cultural contributions, that is one thing that we are going to look at. There are a lot of terminologies in Chola period. So we need to look at those terminologies from our examination perspective. Now, if we go to Ghazni, Gori, and Rajputs, so what has been asked in mains? Nothing. In prelims examination, again, the questions that we can expect can be on literature. They have not been asked, but if we look at the possibility, we should be prepared for questions on literary segment. Okay. Now coming to Delhi Sultanate, when we are talking about Delhi Sultanate, in the past 10 years, in mains you will find one question, one comprehensive question on Delhi Sultanate. And there was one question on Persian sources. So that combined both Delhi Sultanate as well as our Mughal period. Okay. So that is about mains. What about prelims? In prelims, multiple questions have been asked, and when we move to medieval India, what becomes important here to understand that UPSC is asking about certain regional dynasties also. When we were talking about ancient segment, I did not ask you to remember the smaller names. In medieval, we will have to do that. And those questions can be solved purely on the basis of logic. When you will understand that time period, you will be able to solve those questions even without mugging it up. Okay. So when we will discuss it, you will learn how to do that. Other kind of questions are revolving around, again, literature, terminologies, then important sites. So that will remain the same as we were discussing in ancient segment. So I hope that is clear. So let us start with the questions first. ये अर्थशास्त्र वाले तो कर लिए थे ना हमने Mauryan में. Yes, so this is from post-Mauryan period. In which one of the following regions was Dhanya Katak, which flourished as a prominent Buddhist center under the Mahasanghikas, located? Andhra Pradesh. So Andhra is going to be our answer. Okay. It is a very simple question if you know that Dhanya Katak refers to Amaravati. If you don't know that, you won't be able to solve this question. That is why I kept saying that look at the previous names of the cities as well. Okay. So what else is the information that we are getting to know here? What the question is saying. Read it out. They are saying which one of the following regions was Dhanya Katak. Okay, so they are talking about Dhanya Katak, which flourished as a prominent Buddhist center under Mahasanghikas. So we know that it was a prominent Buddhist center. At the same time, we know that it belongs to Mahasanghika branch of Buddhism. So 2 additional questions can be prepared just by looking at the question. Okay. Since UPSC has been asking a lot of questions on Buddhist sites, you should remember these details as well. Is this clear? Now let us move to the next question. 2023. What is the year? Again, 23. So you can see a lot of questions on sites in the very same year. With reference to ancient South India, Korkai, Pompuhar and Muchiri were well known as capital cities, ports, centers of iron and steel making, shrines of Jain Tirthankars. Ports. Okay. So this question is again simple if you know about the sites. If you were reading the newspapers, then you would have been able to solve these questions as well. Why? Because there were 2 to 3 articles in the Hindu on the excavation going on in Muchiri. So in Erika Medu and Muchiri, excavations were going on. And in that context, this particular site had been in news. So we had found a few graves belonging to Romans from these sites. So that is telling us about the trade with Roman Empire. So earlier we had only coins from that site. And then when excavation happened at large scale, we also found some of the graveyards. Okay, so that is why this site was in news and was very important for that year. So when we are studying history, in history too, you have to be aware of the recent developments. Okay, so ports, that is going to be our answer. Next question. Which one of the following explains the practice of Vattakirutal as mentioned in Sangam poems? The year is the same, 2023. One question on Sangam in the context of important sites and one question on terms. So in a single year, you are finding 2 questions from a single topic. So that becomes very important. Okay. So what will be the answer? What is given here? Kings employing women bodyguards. That is present in Puram poetry, but there is no such term used for that. Learned persons assembling in royal courts to discuss religious and philosophical matters. See, this is a very common thing. One would not designate a particular term just to denote it. Okay. Young girls keeping watch over agricultural fields and driving away birds and animals. Again, a very common practice. D is going to be our answer. A king defeated in a battle, committing ritual suicide by starving himself to death. So if we know the basic essence of Sangam period, we talked about the sources. We talked about the importance of warfare. We talked about the practice of erecting hero stones. So if we know about these things, we'll be able to make an intelligent guess, even if we have not come across a particular term called Vattakirutal. See, this is something you have already read. Why am I talking about it? Talking about making intelligent guesses? Because even after you have prepared very well, there might be questions which will be unfamiliar to you. So there we also need to develop this habit of making intelligent guesses. ऐसे नहीं करना है कि randomly कुछ भी गिन के कि ऐसे कर दिया कि हाँ इसमें A कर रहे हैं, इसमें B कर रहे हैं, तो तीसरे में C कर देते हैं. This is not something that we have to do. We need to make intelligent guesses if there is a need. If we are in a safe zone, in prelims we don't need to take risk. क्योंकि इसका कोई लेना देना नहीं है आपके रैंक से, आपके आगे क्वालिफाई करने या नहीं करने से. It is a qualifying exam. If we are in a safe zone, we should not take any kind of risk. If we feel that we are not able to solve as many questions as we should, then we can make intelligent guesses. Okay. So now let us come to the next question. ऐसे क्यों हो जाता है? Does anyone know the trick? कैसे इसको ऊपर करेंगे? हाँ? Okay. Thank you. हाँ. With reference to ancient Indian history, consider the following pairs. Are you able to identify any of the sources here? Milinda Panho, it has been given Nagarjun. And if one is solely relying on the NCERT, one is going to make a mistake here. Because it is written, Milinda Panho was composed by Nagasen, who is also known as Nagarjun. But Nagasen and Nagarjun are not the same. When we are talking about Milinda Panho, it is composed by Nagasen. Which is the text that Nagarjun composed? Pragya Paramita Sutra. Okay, that is the text that has been attributed to Nagarjun. There is a lot of debate on that as well, but this is a person whom they finally attributed the text to. So this is definitely a wrong match. When we are looking at Devi Chandragupta, wrong. Who composed Devi Chandragupta? Vishakhadatta. Mudra Rakshas and Devi Chandragupta. So these two are definitely wrong. These two are right, but you have not read them yet here in this class. I hope you have covered it in foundation. So Hammir Mahakavya has been composed by Naya Chandra Suri. You should write it down if you don't know about these texts. Niti Kavya Mitra, that has been composed by Somadeva Suri. So two options are wrong and two are right. What they are asking, how many of the above pairs are correctly matched? Option B, only 2. ऐसे भी अगर दो टेक्स्ट भी आता है तो या तो आंसर ए होगा या तो बी होगा. All 3 हो, only 3 हो नहीं सकता, all 4 हो नहीं सकता. Okay. So let us move forward and look at the next question. This I'll make you solve when we will cover slave dynasty, when we'll cover Delhi Sultanate completely, because there are other questions as well, like which are being asked on this type of pattern. Now let us look at this. Consider the following pairs: site, base Nagar, Shaivite cave shrine. Did you get the time to look at the photos in NCERT? There is a particular pillar and that has been given in your NCERT. It is the pillar of Heliodorus in post-Mauryan period. Have you seen the photograph? If you look at the photograph given in NCERT, it has been given Heliodorus's pillar at Besnagar. And if you look at the capital of that particular pillar, it is Garuna pillar. That means it is attributed to Vaishnavism. Garun. It is not Nandi bull. It is Garun. So attributed to Vaishnavism. Here what they have given? Shaivite cave shrine. Wrong. Bhaja. This site has been repeatedly asked. This we discussed in class as well. If you look at the photographs, again the photo of Bhaja caves has been given in your NCERT. It is a Buddhist site. The same is true about Sitnavasal as well. In 11th class Fine Arts NCERT, a photograph, a painting from Sitnavasal Jain cave has been given. So if we have just looked at the photographs and the sites, we'll be able to solve this question. And this question was considered difficult by a lot of people. If you look at photographs, it's very easy. Okay, so this is wrong. Bhaja, right. Sitnavasal, right. Is this clear? What will be the answer? Only 2. This is 2022. So 23, we saw 2 questions from Sangamej. This is 22. What is written here? Which one of the following statements about Sangam literature in ancient South India is correct? So, let us read it. You know the answer, that is right, but let us read it what they are saying so that we can get to know additional information too. What they are saying, Sangam poems are devoid of any reference to material culture. Is this right? They are talking about agriculture, they are talking about craft production, they are talking about trade. How can it be devoid of any reference to material culture? This is definitely a wrong statement. The social classification of Varna was known to Sangam poets. We know that they knew about Varna system, they knew about caste system, they knew about Sati, they knew about all these institutions and they were practicing those institutions as well. So this is going to be our right answer. Nonetheless, let us look at two other statements as well. Sangam poems have no reference to warrior ethic. They are talking about warfare to a great extent. There is a whole category of poetry called Puram poetry, which has been attributed to warfare and politics. So, of course, they are going to talk about warrior ethic. There is this text called Tirukural, who is a text on ethics and morality. So, they are going to talk about ethical values of a warrior. Okay, so this is a wrong statement. Sangam literature refers to magical forces as irrational. Would it be true? It's a statement based on common sense. When we are talking about ancient societies, when we are talking about medieval societies, and even today, अगर किसी की बड़ी तबीयत खराब हो जाए, ठीक नहीं हो रहा है, तो क्या कहते हैं? जादू कर दिया है, टोना कर दिया है, ठीक है, नजर लगा दी है. इस तरह की बातें तो आज भी कॉमन है. When we are talking about rationalism, when we are talking about logic, then also society believes in these kind of totems or magical forces. So here, of course, it was bound to be present and references are there. Okay, so this is also a wrong statement. Our right answer is going to be B. Is this clear? This we'll cover जब हम वो पूरा regional वाला करेंगे ना एक साथ, then we'll cover this question. Okay, so these were the questions which were asked from post-Mauryan period. When we are talking about Gupta period questions, they are mostly either on sites or on literature, so that we will cover wherever there will be a reference. We looked at one particular text. Which text was from Gupta period? Devi Chandra Gupta. We looked at that text which was from Gupta period. Okay, so we'll talk about a few more questions in the coming days after completing this area. Okay, chalo. So let us move to our discussion of Chola period. Is there any question from the last class? Revise किया था? सब समझ आ गया? चलो, good. So let us talk about Chola Empire. Now, when we are talking about Chola Empire, what is going to be the location? Which part of Indian subcontinent are we talking about? Southern part. Okay, that is the part that we are going to talk about. Are they the same as Sangam Cholas? No. Is there a reference of them relating to Sangam Cholas? No. होता तो बोलते ना कि they are related to the Sangam Cholas. The name is same, but there is no reference which is telling us whether they were related to each other or not. When we are talking about Chola Empire, they have been called Imperial Cholas. Why Imperial Cholas? Okay. So they are extending their empire beyond Indian subcontinent. So they are going to eastern. So when we are talking about Cholas, the primary area of influence will be this. But they are going to defeat the rulers of Ganga. They are going to defeat the rulers of Sri Lanka. They are going to extend their sphere of influence into Southeast Asia as well. When we are talking about their connection with Southeast Asia, is it political or cultural? Are they going to rule that area politically? No. So the influence will be cultural. In which context the influence is going to be cultural? If you go to Java, if you go to Sumatra, you will find temples dedicated to characters of Ramayana and Mahabharata. You will find their own versions of Ram Katha and Mahabharata. So when we are talking about Cholas extending their cultural influence, they are extending their influence in terms of spreading Hinduism and Sanskrit culture. So they are going to spread the important Sanskrit texts there, the tenets of Hinduism there. Okay, so that is going to be called the cultural influence. When we say political influence, what do we mean by that? Those areas are either going to be directly ruled by them, or they are going to exercise some kind of indirect political control in those areas. Okay. So when we are talking about Southeast Asia, what becomes important? Cultural link and economic link. So they are going to engage in long distance trade with Southeast Asian countries. They are going to extend their cultural influence over these territories. When we are talking about their political influence, what is going to be the area? Northern part of present day Sri Lanka. Southern part, there they exercised cultural influence. Okay. So northern part, these areas, there has been time when they have ruled some areas of Deccan too. I hope this is clear. Who were the important rulers from Chola Empire? Raja Chol and Rajendra first. These are the two rulers who become important in Chola Empire. Why are they important? Let's start with Raja Chol. When we are talking about Raja Chol, why this name becomes important? Because he is going to be the one who will try to defeat the existing kingdoms in this area. Okay. Will he be able to completely uproot them? No. He is going to defeat them to some extent. They were not completely uprooted. So when we are referring to, so the name of Pandyas come up, the name of Cheras also come up. So he is going to defeat these kingdoms to certain extent, and he'll try to extend the area of political influence. Okay, he is a ruler who was a Shaivite, and he built the temple of Brihadeshwara. So Brihadeshwara temple is being built by the patronage provided by Raja Chol. Why am I talking about these contributions, Shaivite and second Brihadeshwara temple? Because if UPSC gives you a statement, identify the correct statement, and they gave you two statements. One is about Rajendra first and second is about Raja Chol. And they changed the contributions. So with this person, there are very few things that you need to remember. So if you know the contributions of Raja Chol, you will be able to identify whether the statement is correct or not. So these are some of the smarter ways to tackle these kind of questions. Okay. So remember, tried to extend the area of political influence. Second was a Shaivite. Third, built Brihadeshwara temple. Okay. Now, when we are talking about Rajendra first, what is going to be his contribution? He is going to defeat the rulers who were present here, and he is going to completely uproot them. Okay. He is going to win the area of northern Sri Lanka politically as well. What else he did? He is going to go up to the Ganga river, and he defeated two of the rulers there. He took the title of Gangai Konda. Okay, so he took the way Narasimha Varman had taken the title of Vatapi Konda. He is taking the title of Gangai Konda, and he is building a city called Gangai Konda Chola Puram. Okay, he'll build a temple there. He'll build some other temples called Aiteshwara temple. Okay, so he is also going to be a ruler who is going to give huge patronage to building of temples. What is going to be the style of those temples? Dravida. We are talking about southern part of Indian subcontinent. So Dravida style of architecture. Is this clear? So remember this when we are talking about Rajendra first. Okay. Political achievements are there. Cultural achievements are there too. Is this clear? So this is something that we should remember when we are talking about the achievements of the ruler. One thing that is going to become very important here, that they are going to extend the area of cultural influence as well, where southern part of present-day Sri Lanka and territories of Southeast Asia. So they are going to spread the religion Hinduism there. Conversion nahi hai, cultural influence hai. Okay, so literature which is belonging to Hindu religion, worship of certain deities in some capacity. That is something which is going to happen. Now think about it. If you are going to spread a particular religion in a cultural sense to a different area, you are going to introduce that this is a particular deity that we worship. Here also we can make their idols. How are you going to tell them how to make a particular idol? If you are given two sculptures, one is of Shiva and one is of Vishnu, how will you identify it? Which one is of Vishnu and which one is of Shiva? अगर नहीं है वो, तो दोनों ट्राइडेंट लेते हैं क्या? There are specific attributes being associated with these deities. When we are talking about Shiva, Trishul, trident. When we talk about Vishnu, Shankh, conch shell, Chakra. So you can identify किसका मूर्ति है ना, by looking at the attributes of a particular deity. किस तरीके से बाल बनाया है, जटा मुकुट है कि किरीट मुकुट है. When you are looking at a particular idol of a deity, there are certain attributes which they have been ascribed. So when we are making those idols, we are going to put those symbols with that particular deity. Now if you have to teach this to a society who does not know anything about these deities, you are going to give them some idols ना, कि ये मूर्ति है इस तरीके से बनाते हैं. You will see that when we are looking at Chola bronzes, on the pedestal there are holes. They were meant to be carried. कि यहाँ पे क्या करेंगे, ऐसे कुछ लकड़ी का लगा के ऐसे लेकर जाते हैं ना कंधे पे रख के. You can travel, and these kind of things have been recorded as well. So there were religious processions in which these idols were being taken out. People were carrying these idols from one area to the other to teach iconography to different societies. Okay, so this is one way of making other people understand about your culture when it comes to sculpture making. If we talk about literature, you are going to copy a manuscript and you are going to take it there. Okay, so there are various ways in which knowledge travels in literary form, in oral form, in sculptural form. Is this clear? So remember this, and this is a process which is going to take place during Chola period. Okay. Now let us move forward. This is the cultural achievements of these rulers. Now if we talk about their economy, what kind of economy was present during that time? Agriculture is going to be there in any society. Agriculture is going to be present if they are settled people. Okay. So, agriculture. Do we see any new crop being introduced here? No. We will talk about the introduction of new crops with the coming of Portuguese. Okay. So, no new crops. When we are talking about, let's say, technique. So, in irrigation, people were managing their irrigation process on their own by attributing certain funds to the village fund. Okay, so what they'll do, they'll say that if this is a village lake, it should be maintained properly, and people are going to take initiative on their own. That is a very unique feature when we are talking about Chola people. Is this clear? So remember this. Now, when we talk about state, did state interfere in these kinds of management at local level? No. State did not interfere in these kind of managements at local level. We'll talk about it once we are done with the economy process. Now, when you are looking at the maintenance of this lake at village level, there was a particular type of land, eripatti. So that land, the revenue coming from that land was used to maintain the village lake. So they have also identified a piece of land कि यहाँ से revenue जो आएगा, that will directly go for the maintenance of village lake, and the term is eripatti. Is this clear? So remember this. Now, when we are talking about agriculturalists, who are practicing agriculture here? Apart from the traditional division, the category of Sata, Shudra. In yesterday's class, I had told you that some of the Shudras also started practicing agriculture. And here you see clear-cut division between Sata Shudra and Asata Shudra. When we are talking about Sata Shudras, they are agriculturalists. So in that context, we find another term, a category of Shudras who had become agriculturalists. Is this clear? So remember this, here we come across two terms when we are talking about agriculture in Chola period. The agriculture flourished a lot. There was a huge surplus production. Why? Because people themselves are taking initiative to maintain the irrigation facility. Is this clear? So remember this. Now when we are coming to pastoralism, more or less the same thing is going to be followed. Craft production, so surplus production is there, craft production is going to flourish. Trade, so trade is also going to flourish, especially with Southeast Asia. Okay, so that is another thing that we should remember, and state is also going to facilitate it. Is this clear? So this is something that we should remember when we are talking about economy during the Chola period. We talked about a land type of eripatti. Are there other kinds of land grants being given by the rulers? Which ones are they? Do you remember any of the names? So there is Brahmadeya, given to Brahmins, tax-free land grants which were given to Brahmins. There are Agraharas, again given to Brahmins. There is a particular category of land which is going to be given to educational institutes. Which one was that? Shala Bhog. Shala Bhog. जैसे कहते हैं ना हिंदी में अभी भी पाठशाला, जहाँ पढ़ने जाते हैं, तो ऐसे ही शाला भोग, land which was given to whom? Educational institutes. Okay. Vellanvagai, land which was being given to non-agriculturalist population. Pallichichandam, land given to Jain institutions. Okay, so there are all categories of lands which was being given during this time to different entities. There is another term which is used, Taniyur, which denotes a group of villages. Okay, so we find a lot of terms from this particular time period, and we should remember these terms from prelims perspective. Is this clear? So that is another thing that you should remember from this period. Now let us talk about the administration from this period. So here also we come across a lot of terms. For example, we come across a term called Mandalam. So it will denote a province or a prant. Okay, Mandalam. It will be subdivided into Vala, Nadu. That will be further divided into Nadu, and that will be divided into Grama. Okay, so Kottam or Grama. So that is going to be the subdivision of the land. Okay, so if these terms are going to come, what these terms are going to denote? Administrative unit. Is this clear? So this is one thing that we need to remember. Now the system is going to be functioning in the very same way that we have been studying from earlier time period. Here there was one thing which was very interesting, the idea of local self-government. That is something which is unique. What is the idea of local self-government? लोकल क्या हुआ? लोकल लेवल पे, ठीक है, वो हो सकता है कि गांव के स्तर पे हो या कुछ गांवों का समूह हो उसके स्तर पे हो. सो इट कैन फंक्शन इन अ विलेज और इन अ ग्रुप ऑफ villages. Okay, that will be at local level. What do we mean by self-government? So people have been given some kind of autonomy in which context to govern themselves on their own. That will be the idea of local self-government. So they are going to come up with a system to govern themselves by the chosen representative, and state or king is not going to interfere in that kind of setup. That is going to be the idea of local self-government. So what they were doing, were they conducting elections? Yes. Was that election democratic? No. Why? देखिए कैसे होता है, मैं आपको बताती हूँ सिंपली इसको, देन यू विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड इट, बिकॉज दीज काइंड ऑफ स्टेटमेंट्स बिकम वेरी कॉन्ट्रोवर्शियल. Whether it was a democracy or not, it was not a democracy. What is happening, that they are going to divide the villages into some wards, and then they had put some qualification as well, that these should be the qualifications. So in qualification, one should have the knowledge of Veda, one should have certain property in the village. So when we are talking about knowledge of Vedas, that means only certain people will be eligible to contest for that post. Okay, so that categorization is there. Now people who are qualified to contest the elections, if they are interested, they can give their names. Okay, they will give their names. What will eventually happen that there is going to be the village temple, the purohit will be present there, और एक बोल में वो पूरा नाम का ऐसे चिट रखेगा और पूरा गांव वहाँ पे इकट्ठा होगा. So the whole village was supposed to gather in front of the temple. Okay, now the whole village is gathered. The purohit is going to take that bowl. The purohit is going to ask a random person to come and choose one of the names. तो एक नाम उसमें से निकाला जिसका नाम है उसको चुन लिया. Is it democratic? People are not voting. ये तो क्या है? ये fair election है, but it is a lottery system. Okay, so we cannot say that it was a democratic system. What we can say that it was the idea of fair election was present. कि भाई fairness है, सबका नाम रखा है, जिसकी किस्मत है उसको चुन लिया जाएगा. This is how the election was being conducted. After the successful conduction of election, these people were going to form committees and they are going to take care of the tasks at local level. So if there is a community garden, how it is going to be taken care of, or if there is this village lake, how they are going to take care of it. And the interesting thing is that the system was very transparent. How much revenue are they getting to spend on the maintenance? They had to give a list of all the expenditures. And how do we get to know about it? There is this Uttara Merur inscription. By looking at the details of that inscription, we get to know about these things, that when we are talking about the expenditure process, it was very transparent. Two people were being told where the revenue is being spent. So this is a very unique system that we find during Chola Empire. Is this clear? So remember the nitty-gritties of this local self-government. Now there are a few more terms that you should know. There is a term called Sabha. What do we mean by Sabha? Assembly of Brahmins. There is a term called Ur. What do we mean by Ur? Assembly of general people. Okay, so general people without any distinction. When we are saying Sabha, it is going to be exclusively of Brahmins. Nagaram, committee of city dwellers, and specifically traders or craftspeople who are going to be part of the city life, they used to make their own committee. So these are some of the terms that we should be familiar with from examination perspective. Is this clear? Yes. चले, clear है ये? Now let us come to society. What is happening at the social level? Is there any change that you witness in a Varna system? Is there any development that we are coming across? What is the development? नहीं, strengthening तो हो ही रहा है. Sat Shudra and Asat Shudra. That is the differentiation in the category of Shudras that is coming here. Sat Shudras, agriculturalists, or Sat Shudras who are doing works traditionally ascribed to them. Okay, so this is one change that we are witnessing here. What else is changing? If we look at the status of Brahmins, they are going to become more powerful. Why? They have been getting a lot of tax-free land grants in the context of Brahmadeya and Agrahara. Now these rulers were donating a lot of lands to temples as well, which was known as a Devadana. So Devadana, Devata ko diya gaya dan. Who is going to manage that land? Brahmins, who were working at the temple. Okay, so they are going to have a lot of revenue at their disposal. So socially they were strong, economically they are going to become much better at this point of time. And you will see that many of these temples started working as banks. Why? They had huge wealth at their disposal. Is this clear? So this is another thing that we should remember from this site. And often when we are talking about these temples, there were ghatikas. What is the meaning of ghatika? An educational institute attached to a temple. When we are talking about the idea of education, be it in ancient India or in medieval India, the nature was often religious. And when we are looking at the religious architecture, you will find educational institutes being attached to them as well. So Ghatika is another term which we should remember. Prominently, who are going to manage these institutions? The ones who are managing the temples. Is this clear? So remember this. If we look at all these things, we know that the category of Brahmin had become very powerful. I hope this is clear. So this is one change that you should remember with respect to the category of Brahmins, with respect to the category of Shudras. Now let us come to the next category, that is of women. What is the condition of women at this point of time? Ghatika is the educational institute which were attached to the temples. Yes, category of women. Devadasi tradition is going to develop. What is the tradition of Devadasi? Okay, so they will perform ceremonial dance. They are going to be married to the deity. Okay, so Devadasis were married to the deity and they used to perform ceremonial dance in the Natya Mandap of Chola temples. Now, what will start happening eventually, that this tradition will become very regressive for women, because they will be sexually exploited, physically exploited by village men in general. Okay, so that is a particular change which is going to be very regressive for women in long run. That is one development that we should remember. When we are talking about other problematic aspects pertaining to the category of women, they are going to remain more or less the same. There is one positive thing that can be noted here, especially in the context of upper Varna women. So what is happening here, when we are looking at temple walls, there are a lot of donative inscriptions present on those temple walls. And when we are looking at the names, what are we getting to know? That majority of these donations have been made by upper caste women. Okay, so the donations which are coming in the form of land grant, that is mostly being made by men. When we are talking about smaller donations, they are being made by upper caste women. So that tells us that upper caste women had probably access to some kind of property, whether they were using their stridhan or they had some other access to property, that is not clear, because they are not telling us ki kahan se paisa aa raha hai. What is written? That this donation has been made by this particular woman. Is this clear? So we know that when we are looking at the category of upper Varna or upper caste women, economically they are better than other women and they are also making donations to the temples. Is this clear? So when we are talking about Varna system, we understood the changes. When we are talking about the category of women, we understood the changes. I hope this much is clear. Now let us move on to the next aspect, which is going to be of religion. So these people are going to patronize largely Hinduism. At the same time, we should also notice that Jainism also existed to some extent. The land grant called Palli Chandanam is giving us an insight into this, because it is being given to Jain institutions. Okay, are we finding references to Buddhism at this point of time in this land? No. So major patronage is going to Hinduism. Jainism also existed. Is this clear? So remember this when we are talking about religious aspect of Chola Empire. Now let us come to culture. What is happening in cultural section? What do we know here? Literary development will happen. A major example is Kamban's Ramayana. So Kamban is a writer who composed Ramayana in Tamil language. So that is known as Kamban's Ramayana. That can be our major example. Then when we are talking about this particular time, there were saints, bhakti saints called Alvar and Nayanar. So the movement started from 7th century onwards and it remained relevant at this point of time as well. Those saints also composed some of their teachings in poetic form. So they are also going to be compiled eventually. And the name of the compilation is Tirumurai. We will talk about these details when we will discuss the section of philosophy separately. But you need to remember, when we are talking about this period, some bhakti saints belonging to Alvar and Nayanar tradition existed during this period. Is this clear? So they are also going to compose their texts and eventually their texts will be compiled. Is this clear? So remember this when we are talking about literature. Now, if we talk about sculptures, what kind of sculptures will be made during this time? So stone sculptures and Chola bronzes are also very famous. If you go to National Museum, there is a separate gallery for Chola bronzes. So we find stone statues of Hindu gods and goddesses. We find we find bronze sculptures of Hindu gods, goddesses. At the same time, we also find some of the bronze sculptures of these bhakti saints. So for example, Sundar, Appar, they were some bhakti saints of this particular time. Their bronze statues were also being made. And if you go to National Museum, you can see these statues. They are at display. Is this clear? So remember, when we are talking about sculptural tradition, here stone statues are also being built, bronze statues are also being built. Again, the technique is going to be the same, lost and wax technique. When we are talking about bronze sculptures, they were also meant to be carried out in processions and to far off lands as well. I told you already that on the pedestals we find smaller holes. Is this clear? So remember this. Do you know about Nataraja image? Yes. जो मिल रहा है वो देवी देवताओं का है. अब बनेगा, बना लीजिए किसी का भी. अरे भाई, ब्रॉन्ज में मिलेगा तब बताएंगे ना, कि खुद से बना दें. इन ब्रॉन्जेस, हाँ, नहीं तो नहीं मिल रहा है. जो टेम्पल वॉल है वहां पे डिपिक्शन मिलेगा, ब्रॉन्ज में नहीं मिल रहा है. ठीक है, गॉड्स का मिल रहा है, गॉडेसेस का मिल रहा है, भक्ति सेंट्स का मिल रहा है. चले, नटराज इमेज. व्हाट इज द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ नटराज इमेज? ठीक है, क्या बता रहा है वो इमेज हमको? तांडव डांस ऑफ शिव. एक मेंस में क्वेश्चन पूछा था 2013 में कि तांडव डांस का रिप्रेजेंटेशन इंडियन हेरिटेज में कैसे है, हमारे कल्चर में कैसे है. तो उसमें इस तरह के एग्जाम्पल्स हमारे बहुत काम आते हैं. If we talk about Tandav dance being represented in Indian mythology, and specifically if we talk about Hindu mythology, you will see Kaliya Mardan Krishna. So after that, Krishna that does Tandav dance, and then you find the Tandav dance of Shiva. So if we are taking these two examples only, we can show them in literature, we can show them in sculpture form on the temple walls, and we'll be able to write a very good answer even without reading about it. So that is where the art of writing and relating one thing to the other comes at display. Okay, so we need to learn to connect the dots simultaneously. So here when we are talking about the image of Nataraj, it is a very important image considering the Indian cultural history. When we are talking about this image, it is showing us a drum in one of Shiva's hands and fire in the other. So it is showing the sound of construction and destruction at the same time. In this particular sculpture, you will also find that Shiva is dancing on the body of Apasmar. So that means one can achieve salvation. Who is Apasmar? Maya. जिसको माया का देवता कह लीजिए, demon कह लीजिए, Maya. Okay, so he is dancing over the body of Apasmar, and one of his hands is indicating to that direction that you can attain salvation. A similar kind of idea you will find in Buddhism as well. In Buddhism, there is this particular sculpture of a Buddha depicting Mara Vijay. When a Buddha was about to attain Nirvana, attain Bodhi, then Mar, the demon of Maya, illusions, is sending an army to Buddha to lure Buddha into worldly desires. And Buddha is touching the earth and he is asking the Mother Earth to witness that he was not lured by the army of Mar. And that particular incident is called Mar Vijay. UPSC ने मार विजय पे एक क्वेश्चन पूछा था जिसमें कि बुद्ध जो है टचिंग द अर्थ, क्या है वो मुद्रा? तो मार विजय है बुद्ध अटेनिंग बोधि निर्वाण. That is what Mar Vijay denotes. Okay, so when we are talking about the idea of illusion and the demon of illusion, in Hinduism you will find the term Apasmar, in Buddhism you will find the term Mar. So in the sculptural representation we find that Nataraj image also indicates towards the ability to achieve salvation. So it is depicting the sound of creation, the idea of destruction, and the capability to achieve salvation simultaneously. Is this clear? And this image is going to become very important in Hindu culture. So I hope you understand it. There are other images as well. Hanji. Apasmar. So this image is going to become very important. You will find images of Shiva, images of Vishnu, images of Parvati. All these images are going to be found along with the images of Appar, Sundar, Humar Bhakti saints. There is one very interesting bronze statue which I came across, and it is also kept in National Museum, the statue of Bharat. If you look at the sculptural tradition, you will find statues of Ram and Lakshman a lot. You will hardly find statues of Bharat. It is not very common. So when we are looking at Chola bronzes, there is one particular statue, इतना बड़ा statue है और उसमें सिर पे वो चरण पादुका रखी हुई है. It's a very beautiful statue. And when National Museum was constructed, तो क्या हुआ था कि अलग-अलग जगहों से जिनके पास भी sculptures थे प्राइवेट कलेक्शन में या जहाँ पर भी excavation हो रहा है वहाँ से जो important चीज़ें मिल रही हैं, तो जो head होते थे National Museum के, they tried to bring all those statues as well. There is a very beautiful story behind the construction of National Museum as well. If someday we have time, we can talk about it. But here we are at the statue of Bharat, so I am telling you that story. So what happened there was, so पहले क्या होता था कि जो archaeologists होते थे, वही लोग head बनते थे National Museum के. अभी तो administrative position में जो लोग होते हैं, they are also made the heads of these institutions. So there was one such person who heard कि भाई एक इंसान है उनके पास में भारत का स्टेचू है प्राइवेट कलेक्शन में, क्योंकि पहले तो म्यूजियम्स थे नहीं इंडिया में. म्यूजियम्स आर being built when colonialism is present here. तो आप देखेंगे पहले म्यूजियम्स बन रहे हैं 19th century में हमारे यहाँ, तो Calcutta Museum, then eventually you will see Patna Museum and various other museums coming up, and eventually after independence we find National Museum. Then National Museum was constructed. So what happened? Earlier what used to happen, जिसको जहाँ जो मिला अपने पास रख लिया, बहुत सारा सामान ब्रिटिश भी लेकर के चले गए. So he heard that there is this person who had a statue of Bharat in his private collection. तो वो उनके पास गए उनको कन्विंस करने के लिए कि भाई ये जो इमेज है बहुत ही रेयर है और ये आप नेशनल म्यूजियम को दे दें. तो जितना वो एक्सप्लेन करते थे कि ये बहुत रेयर है, उतना उसको ये कन्विक्शन होता जाता था कि आई वॉन्ट टू कीप दिस इन माई प्राइवेट कलेक्शन. एंड नेशनल म्यूजियम वॉज रेडी टू पे एनी अमाउंट जो उनको चाहिए था कि वो इमेज वो नेशनल म्यूजियम को दे दें. एंड वन डे दैट पर्सन स्टार्टेड क्राइंग, एक्सप्लेन करते करते कि ये इतना रेयर है, इतना इम्पॉर्टेंट है. ही स्टार्टेड क्राइंग बिकॉज सी व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट प्रोफेशनल हिस्टोरियंस और आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट्स, दे हैव गिवन सो मेनी years of their lives to a particular discipline that they become emotional about it. For them it is not just a piece of art. For them it is something which becomes very close to their heart. And then he understood how important it is and he gave it for free. So he donated that image to National Museum. If someday you get time to visit National Museum, go to the Chola Bronze Gallery and look at that sculpture. Okay. So this is again a rare sculpture that we find from Chola period as well. So these kind of images are also being built during this time. So in sculptural tradition, we find stone statues and bronze statues, and Chola bronzes were very famous. They were produced at a large scale. Is this clear? So remember this when we are talking about the cultural legacy of Chola Empire. Apart from this, we see that they are building huge temples in Dravida temple architecture style. So when we are talking about these temples, there are certain additions as well. We'll talk about those additions when we'll talk about the section of architecture separately. Here remember that these temples are very huge. These temples are very monumental in nature. What is it telling us about Chola Empire? That there was economic prosperity present in the Chola Empire. These Chola rulers are getting huge revenue from agriculture as well as trade. And wherever they are going and registering their victory from that land, they are getting wealth as well. So when we look at the monumentality of a particular architecture, this should also come to our mind that the area or that particular empire was economically prosperous. Then only you will be able to build such huge structures. Is this clear? So remember this when we are talking about the Chola architecture, huge and monumental temples which had intricate carvings on the temple walls. When we are talking about carvings, the major subject is going to be religious. That is another thing that we should remember. When we are looking at the temple walls, on these temple walls, you will also find paintings. Okay, so now when we are looking at temple walls, be it cave temples, be it structural temples, we find a painting tradition as well. And a very common subject is going to be from either Puranic tradition or our epic tradition. So in epic also Sanskrit epic. So when we are talking about the subject matter of these paintings, majorly they are from Puranas or they are from Ramayana and Mahabharata. So we also see beautiful painting tradition being present on the temple walls, and many a times they were repainted. तो क्या है, एक बार पेंटिंग बना दिया, उसको प्रिजर्व करने के लिए क्या करेंगे आप, उसको रीपेंट करेंगे, फिर उसको आगे और खराब हो रहा है फिर से उसको पेंट उसके ऊपर करेंगे. एंड समटाइम्स यू विल आल्सो फाइंड सम इंटरेस्टिंग डिटेल्स from later times. There was this temple in Orcha which I visited a few years back. So I saw that they have depicted an army. और उस आर्मी को बंदूक पकड़ा दिया है. तो हो सकता है कि colonial times में उसको पेंट किया हो, when rifles and guns they had become common. So this also tells you about the later history of that area, what kind of cultural influences were present in the coming times. So paintings and repaintings on the temple walls. I hope this is clear. So remember these details when we are talking about the cultural legacy. When we are talking about temples, two important developments that should be noted. One, huge economic prosperity due to which these monumental temples are being built. Second, temple-centered urbanization. So people from far off areas are going to come to these temples and they are going to give huge donations. So Dan Mandap, Bhog Mandap, these are the architectural styles which are going to be present here. Dan Mandap jahan aap daan de rahe hain, Bhog Mandap jahan se aapko prasad mil raha hai, Natya Mandap where Devadasis are going to perform. So with the changing milieu of a particular time, we also see additions in temple architecture style. When we'll come to Vijayanagar period, we'll study Kalyana Mandap. So what is Kalyana Mandap? What is the meaning of Kalyan? ये तो बार बार बात कर चुके हैं. Divine marriage. So if you go to south, if you go to Deccan, you will see many people getting married in the temple premises. And that had been part of their tradition. So there was this particular addition in the temple architecture style during Vijayanagar period. So Kalyan Mandap was added in the temples where people will come and they'll get married. In social issues wala section, there was this one question mains में जो पूछा गया था, उसमें ये question पूछा था, essence I don't exactly remember the statement, but उसका essence कुछ ऐसा था कि in present times are we losing the sanctity of the tradition of marriage, and we had to explain it. So what is the idea of sanctity or divinity of marriage? So divinity has been associated with it, be it in textual tradition, be it in our architectural tradition. What is the meaning of losing that sanctity? When people are becoming vocal about the repressive traditions present in marriage, is it about losing the sanctity, or is it about talking about your rights or talking about equality? These things we need to learn to connect. So with historic, you need to make a link between historical traditions and present developments, and it helps especially in social issues. Okay, so these kind of things can help you there also. उसमें लिखना तो social issues ही है, लेकिन introduction में अगर एक historical background दे देते हैं, so it will make your answers unique. Okay, and much better, much more interesting. Okay, so you can use these references wherever required. कहीं भी नहीं घुसाना है, ठीक है? So दान मंडप, भोग मंडप, नाट्य मंडप, in Vijayanagar period, Kalyan Mandap, they are going to be these structures which will be added in temple architecture style. Is this clear? So remember this economic aspect being related to the temples, and eventually with this huge donation they are going to start functioning as banks. So you will see multiple people coming, attacking the palaces, attacking the temples, looting wealth from that area. Why? Because there is huge wealth that is collected in the temples and in the palaces treasury. So huge wealth is present there. Okay. Second, a social function. We should remember that will be associated with the tradition of Deva Dasi. Is this clear? So these are the things that we should remember when we are talking about Chola period. Prominently, what we discussed, important terminologies are one area which becomes very important when we are talking about Chola Empire from prelims perspective, or the cultural contributions of important rulers that we have discussed. Is this clear? So should we move on to the next topic? Let us go back to North India. What is happening in North when we are talking about 11th century? Okay. They are going to decline by this particular time. What is the prominent conceptual idea? Decentralization of polity. We had discussed the idea of feudalism in the last class. Okay, so decentralization of polity, and there were some important centers of power. One was Kannauj, one was Ajmer. Okay, and both of them wanted the control of Delhi. So, decentralization of power and important rulers fighting with each other to gain control of certain areas. That is the political setup of this particular time period. Is this clear? So, we should keep this in mind when we are talking about 11th century in North India. Now, in this circumstances, what will happen? See, they have not, here we don't know about important prominent dynasties yet. These areas, if you talk about Kannauj, Kannauj had become important. Gradually Ajmer will become important, but we don't have prominent rulers here at this point of time. Decentralization of power is one factor that we should keep in mind. Okay. Now if we go to Central Asia, what is happening in Central Asia at this point of time? So there are going to be various empires which were formed there. Okay, so in Central Asia, after the origin of Islam, we see coming of various powerful empires. Okay, and rulers were following Islam, and most of the times they were ruling according to Shariat. Okay, that is why those areas were considered a part of Islamic empire. The post of caliph was very important, who was the religious and cultural head or political head as well of the Islamic empire. In your modern Indian history lectures, you must have read about the issue of caliphate after the First World War. So when Gandhi is starting non-cooperation movement, he is integrating the issue of caliphate in non-cooperation movement. So British will eventually try to abolish the post of caliph. When we are talking about medieval period, the post of caliph was very important. Now understand, here there are prominent empires coming up, and what is happening here will also have a profound impact in North India in political terms. Okay, so there was this person called Ghazni. Ghazni had a very powerful empire in Central Asia called Ghaznavid Empire. What he is going to do, whenever he'll need wealth, he'll come here, he'll come to North India, he is going to attack various rulers, he is going to loot a lot of wealth, he is going back to Central Asia. Okay. Now when we are talking about people or invaders coming to North India at this point of time, we need to take account of three factors here. When they are coming here, sometimes they have political motives, that they are looking for a land where they can settle down and they can rule. That is one factor that we need to keep in mind. Second, economic. Whenever attacks are happening, you are going to loot wealth from that land. Wealth is often stored either in a palace or in a temple. So that is going to tell us about the economic angle of these attacks. There is this third, religious angle as well. Not always, but sometimes it was present too. So when invaders are coming, they are going to break certain temples as well. Okay, so we need to keep in mind all these factors. None of the factors should be studied separately. All these factors are present. For some people, one particular factor can be more prominent, for the other, the second or the third factor can be more prominent. Is this clear? Yes. Political. Okay, so all these factors are going to be present. Now, when Ghazni is coming here, he is going to defeat certain rulers. If we talk about this time, do we need to remember all the important battles? Does UPSC ask about these battles? No. UPSC is particularly interested in the relation between Mongols and Delhi Sultanate. So that is one thing that we need to understand. See, once Delhi Sultanate is formed, then we should know about the important invaders. Who are the ones who are coming? How the sultans are going to tackle those invaders. That is a subject matter that we cannot ignore here. When I started the class, then only I told you that in ancient India I kept saying कि नहीं भी अगर हम political factors को याद रखते हैं तो चलेगा. Medieval में we'll have to remember some of the political factors as well, because UPSC does ask questions on some of the political details. Okay, from where? Delhi Sultanate. When you will come to Mughals, again the focus has been shifted to cultural contribution. जो political questions आ रहे हैं वो Delhi Sultanate से आ रहे हैं, not before that, not after them. Is this clear? So let us understand this area. गजनी गोरी वाला जो पार्ट है उसको हमको बस एक बार ऊपर ऊपर से रिवाइज करना है. From here you will not find questions in the last 10 years. Ghazni is coming to India. He came multiple times. He looted a lot of wealth. He went back to Ghaznavid Empire and he asked people not to pay taxes for 3 years. कि बहुत पैसा आ गया है. So for them he must have been a very good ruler. If we look at it from an Indian perspective, he was an invader who came here, looted a lot of wealth, broke certain temples, went back to his homeland. Okay, here when we are looking at him, there is one particular attack on Somnath which becomes very prominent, that happened in 1025. So again from the Somnath temple he looted wealth too, and he broke the temple, he broke the idols, and he went back. Okay, if we talk about some cultural details from this particular time period, what they are going to be. So you should remember the name of Al-Biruni, who composed Kitab al-Hind, and he is giving a lot of important and relevant details of Indian subcontinent of that time. He is talking about political life, he is talking about socio-economic life, he is talking about religious life, he is also writing about the attacks of Muhammad Ghazni. So he is talking about him coming to Somnath as well, attacking the area, breaking the temple. All those things have also been recorded in Kitab al-Hind of Al-Biruni. Is this clear? So remember this. There is महमूद या मोहम्मद जब देखेंगे तो इंटरचेंजेबली यूज हो जाता है. ठीक है. नाउ व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द अदर टेक्स्ट विच इज इंपॉर्टेंट, फिरदौसीज शाहनामा, दैट इज अनदर टेक्स्ट दैट यू कैन रिमेंबर. ओके, दिस रिमेन्स इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम दिस पर्टिकुलर time period. So he was one of the invaders who came, and in this coming century, in the 12th century, we are going to see another invader called Muhammad Ghori. Okay, before going to Ghori, let us understand what is happening in North India. Here we see coming of a lot of Rajput dynasties in Indian subcontinent. So we talked about the period of feudalism. We talked about decentralization of power. In this context, there is a very prominent historian, B.D. Chattopadhyay. He talks about origin of Rajputs. So what is he telling us? What is changing at the bottom? What I explained to you yesterday. If we look at it from the central perspective, there is decentralization of polity. Okay, decentralization of power. If we look at it from the bottom perspective, we see a lot of power coming together and forming a particular kingdom. Okay, so if let's say there are 4 smaller landlords who have been given land grants and the power or the privilege to maintain a troop of army. They are either going to fight with each other, or they'll make diplomatic alliances with each other, and they are gradually going to become more powerful, eventually forming a particular kingdom. Okay, so a lot of Rajput kingdoms are going to be found at this point of time. The major center of power will be Ajmer and Kannauj. There were others as well, but these two are going to become major centers of power. Both of them would want the control of Delhi. Why? Because of the invasions that were happening. Because now you want to stop the person here. Okay, you don't want them to enter Doab. So you would want your capital in an area which is safer and where you can build your capital city. Okay, that is one factor. Second, you want that area to be closer to the battle ground. In this context, the area of present day Haryana becomes very strategic. If you look at all the battles, Tarain, we'll talk about the battle of Tarain, present day Haryana. If you talk about Panipat, all the three battles in Haryana. Why? Because this is an area which was strategically important. In mains, this question has been asked. Panipat mein kyun ho raha hai? Why so many empire-shaking battles were fought at Panipat? Explain. This was one question that UPSC has asked. So people would want to have the control of Delhi. Why? So that they can stop the invader here. For which reason? So that they can have regular supply of army, they can have regular supply of food produce. Okay, कभी भी जब आप लड़ने जा रहे हैं आपको नहीं पता है इन्वेडर का आर्मी कितना बड़ा है. अगर कोई ज़रूरत पड़ गई, आपको खाने पीने का कमी पड़ गया, सेना और भी चाहिए, तो कहाँ रोकेंगे? अपने कन्वीनियंस के प्लेस पे रोकेंगे. बिकॉज यू आर द वन हु विल डिसाइड वेयर टू स्टॉप देम. इट इज़ एन एरिया विच इज़ सूटेबल फॉर वॉरफेयर. कि वहाँ पे पहाड़ नहीं है, lack of mountains. When we are talking about forestation, deep forestation नहीं है. So plains are there with adequate rainfall. Ghaznavid Empire. It is in Central Asia. सेंट्रल एशिया में है, वहां पे उसका एम्पायर है, वहां से आ रहा है. अरे भाई, अफगानिस्तान तक बाउंड्री फैला हुआ है ना. सेंट्रल एशिया है आपका. यहाँ पे यहाँ पाकिस्तान है आज का, यहाँ अफगानिस्तान है. इतना एरिया अगर आपका इसमें आ गया तो आप केवल अफगानिस्तान के हो जाएंगे. ईरान, इराक सब छोड़ देंगे. गजनविद एम्पायर, ठीक है, वो है उसका एम्पायर. प्लीज लुक एट द मैप वंस. एनसीईआरटी खोलिएगा, एक बार मैप देखिएगा. हाँ, देखिए एक चीज़ आप समझिए, ये फाउंडेशन की क्लास नहीं है जहां हम हर वॉर के बारे में पढ़ें. पहली चीज़. दूसरी चीज़ कि एक बार एनसीईआरटी पढ़ के आइए, आपके बहुत सारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स हिले हुए हैं थोड़े, वो क्लियर हो सकते हैं फाउंडेशन की क्लास में. व्हेन वी हैव अ ह्यूज क्लास ओनली ऑन गजनी एंड गोरी. फाउंडेशन में पढ़ते हैं, एक पूरा क्लास करते हैं ना हम गजनी और गोरी के ऊपर. यहाँ तो हम इम्पोर्टेंट बैटल ही पढ़ेंगे. आ रहा है, अगर अटैक कर रहे हैं तो इन्वेडर ही बोलेंगे ना. अरे भाई, तो राजा के साथ थोड़ी ट्रेड होता है, ट्रेडर के साथ ट्रेड होता है ना. जो इन्वेजन कर रहा है उसको इन्वेडर कहते हैं, जो आक्रमण कर रहा है उसको आक्रमणकारी कहते हैं. ठीक है, यहां आकर के ये नहीं कह रहा है ना कि चलो ट्रेड करते हैं या साथ में बैठ के चौसर खेलते हैं. ट्रिब्यूट कौन देगा? जो आपका सत्ता एक्सेप्ट करेगा. जो सत्ता एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेगा उसके साथ में तो वॉरफेयर हुआ ना। कौन से राजा कर रहे हैं बताइए, आपके पास कोई न्यू इन्फॉर्मेशन है तो। अच्छा, I don't know how to explain this to you. If he is coming, attacking an area and looting wealth from there, going back to his empire, कैसे नहीं बोलेंगे भाई? आप मेरा ओपिनियन पूछ रहे हैं या हिस्टोरियंस का? हाँ, तो बहुत लोगों ने जो बोला है वो मान्य होता है। ठीक है, जब हम इतिहास पढ़ते हैं तो हिस्ट्री इज अ सब्जेक्ट वेयर देर आर अ लॉट ऑफ कंटेस्टेशंस। ठीक है, अब जो विवादित चीज़ें हैं उसमें ज़्यादातर लोगों का जो होता है आर्ग्यूमेंट उसको मान्य माना जाता है, और यही यूपीएससी मानती है। ठीक है, तो हम उसी चीज़ को ध्यान में रखते हुए हिस्ट्री को पढ़ते हैं। हाँ, एनसीईआरटी में आपके जो चैप्टर का हेडिंग है वो भी यही है। ठीक है, प्लीज गो थ्रू दैट वंस। नाउ लेट अस कम बैक हियर। किसी और को कोई डाउट है? क्लियर है? चले, सो नाउ व्हेन वी आर लुकिंग एट दिस पर्टिकुलर टाइम वी सी that these two power centers have emerged and we see that they want the control of Delhi. Is this clear? Why? It is a strategic location. That is why they want the control of Delhi. So what is the bottom line which we need to remember? That they are not going to be united. They are going to fight with each other. Under these circumstances, in Central Asia, there is going to be emergence of other different kingdoms. A very prominent empire which is going to rise there will be Khwarezmi Empire. Okay, and in this backdrop, there is Muhammad Ghori, who is trying to make his fortunes as a ruler there. Is this clear? Khwarezmis are very powerful, and Ghori is not going to be able to tackle with them in a very successful manner. What he'll keep doing? Again, he'll also keep coming to northwestern frontier provinces, to North India. He'll try to collect wealth, but he was not very successful in his exploits when he is coming here during the initial phase. So keeping this background in mind, we need to study the battle of Tarain. Is this clear? So what is happening? He is coming and he is attacking this area. There was a very prominent ruler of Chauhan dynasty, Prithviraj Chauhan. So Prithviraj Chauhan is going to defeat him in the first battle of Tarain. In the second battle of Tarain, he was defeated. Okay. Then there is going to be a battle of Chandavar in 1194, and here Jaichand, the ruler of Kannauj, was also defeated. Is this clear? After this point, Muhammad Ghori is going to leave Bakhtiyar Khilji in charge, and he is going to eventually return. When we are talking about the personality of Bakhtiyar Khilji, he is going to go to the eastern areas. He is going to do a lot of massacre at times, especially of Buddhist people. You will see he is going to set on fire the University of Nalanda as well as Vikramshila, which kept burning for months. So see, when we are talking about people who are coming here attacking, it's not the case that everyone is going to commit the same kind of brutality. There are certain people who are very brutal in nature, who are very cruel in nature. Bakhtiyar Khilji was one of them. It is not a general conclusion that we should reach. When we are talking about people who are coming and invading, if their motive is political, they will defeat the ruler, they will take the control of that area. If their motive is economic, they'll come, they'll loot the wealth, they'll go back. Not everyone is going to commit this kind of brutality. There are certain people who did that. For example, this Bakhtiyar Khilji, or we'll talk about Taimur Lung. Is this clear? So remember this thing as well, that we don't need to make generalizations here. Is this clear? So Bakhtiyar Khilji is going to go to that area. Muhammad Ghori will return and he will try to make his fortunes again in Central Asia. He was defeated decisively in 1203 by Khwarezmi Empire, and he understood कि अब मेरा वहाँ पे कुछ होने वाला है नहीं. So when I have won over these areas, why should I not go back there and make an empire in North India? Okay, and with this we see coming of Delhi Sultanate eventually. In 1206 he is going to die, and one of his slaves is going to start slave dynasty. Is this clear? So this is one information that should be present in your mind as a background. UPSC has not asked questions on these wars. Okay, so we can take a break and then we can start Delhi Sultanate. Hanji. अरे भाई, तो एक शहर में थोड़ी सीमित रहेगा. अच्छा एक बात बताइए, अगर हम ये कह रहे हैं कि किसी का कैपिटल कन्नौज है, तो वो कन्नौज का रूलर है या वो वर्धन एम्पायर का रूलर है? तो कन्नौज का क्यों नहीं है? एम्पायर तो कन्नौज में है. तो पूरे इंडिया का रूलर हो गया. तो सम पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया का हुआ ना. आप अपने खुद के क्वेश्चन में कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन देखिए, आप क्या कह रहे हैं. जब आप कह रहे हैं कन्नौज राजधानी है, इंडिया का है, तो कन्नौज का नहीं, तब वर्धन एम्पायर का होगा. आपने विश्व का इतिहास पढ़ा है? प्राचीन विश्व, मध्यकालीन विश्व थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ा है ना? एक बार ठीक से पढ़िए. गजनविद एम्पायर कब है? कब है? मध्यकाल का टाइम पीरियड हम कहाँ से बात कर रहे हैं? हम 11th सेंचुरी से उठा के हम 18th सेंचुरी तक जा रहे हैं. नहीं, ख्वारिज़मी है वहाँ पे. नहीं, एक हिस्टोरियन है दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में, सीमा अलवी, वो एक पेपर पढ़ाती है हिस्ट्री ऑफ सेंट्रल एशिया. अगर आपको बहुत इंटरेस्ट हो तो यू कैन ऑडिट हर पेपर. नहीं, खत्म हो गया है वो, ख्वारिज़मी आ गया है. हाँ, ख्वारिज़मी से लड़ रहा है वो ना, घुरिद एम्पायर का पार्ट है वो. हाँ, कैन आई हैव सम टी नाउ? Okay, so we'll resume the class now. We were discussing the invasions that were taking place in North India in 11th and 12th century. Now, you need to keep this one thing in mind. Whatever is happening in Central Asia will also impact the politics of North India. When we say Central Asia, we mean present day Turkey, Iran, Iraq, some parts of Afghanistan as well. Okay, so that is one thing that you need to keep in mind. We don't have to imagine present day boundaries to understand the medieval boundaries. The boundaries are changing with changing empires. Is this clear? So keep this in mind. Earlier, when we are talking about Central Asia, so there Ghaznavid Empire was present, and we understood that the condition of North India was decentralized in political terms. Now in the next century, what had happened? Khwarezmi Empire had become powerful. Okay, so Muhammad Ghori, he will try to establish Ghurid Empire, but eventually what happened? Khwarezmi Empire had become powerful. Okay, so he will not be able to make his fortunes in Central Asia. Where is he going to move? Towards northwestern frontier, provinces. That means present day Afghanistan, Pakistan, some parts of present day Punjab region. So he is going to move to that area. He'll try to collect taxes from there. He'll try to go to Central Asia, again fighting with Khwarezmi Empire and being defeated in the end. So in 1203 he understood that there is no point of going back to Central Asia because I will not be able to make my fortunes there. Okay. Then in this particular background we need to understand his death and eventually establishment of Delhi Sultanate in North India. Is this clear? Now after some point politics in Central Asia is going to change again. How did it change? Mongols are going to come. Okay, so when Mongols are going to come under Genghis Khan, they are going to go to Central Asia. They are going to defeat the Khwarezmi Empire. They are going to convert to Islam and again establish Mongol Empire. And Mongols will attack parts of China, present day China, and parts of present day India as well. Is this clear? So this is how you will see that politics is changing over time in Central Asia. There will be an empire, then they are going to decline, there will be another empire. And what kind of relation these rulers are going to share with the Central Asian ruler, that is one part which you should be clear about. Okay? So that is a conceptual understanding that we need to develop. Not the factual one, but the conceptual one. Is this clear? Now here when we are talking about Delhi Sultanate, does UPSC asks you about timeline? No. They are not asking you about dates of particular rulers. So you don't have to mug it up. What you need to do, you need to understand the important developments which were happening. You need to keep in mind the important terminologies that are being used. Is this clear? Now when we are coming to Delhi Sultanate, the language of court will become Persian. Some of the terms are going to be different. Now the idea might remain the same, but terminology will be different. So we need to keep those terminologies in mind too. UPSC is asking terminologies from ancient as well as medieval. Is this clear? So have this in mind and let us start our discussion on Delhi Sultanate. Why do we call it Delhi Sultanate? And when we talk about Vijayanagar Empire, we call it an empire. Vijayanagar Empire, huh? Okay, see, this is a very interesting thing that we can keep in mind. Delhi Sultanate, Vijayanagar Empire and Mughal Empire. Here we are referring to the dynasty. Here we are referring to a particular place, be it in the context of Delhi Sultanate or in the context of Vijayanagar Empire. The reason is because when we are talking about Delhi Sultanate, there are going to be various dynasties ruling from Delhi. So Delhi is going to be the capital city and they are going to rule from this area. So we study about slave dynasty, Khilji, Tughlaq, Sayyid, Lodi. There are 5 dynasties. So that is why we will take the name of the capital city. The same is true for Vijayanagar Empire as well. So there also we talk about Sulva, Tulva, Sangam, Aravidi. 4 dynasties are there and the capital city was Vijayanagar or Hampi. Okay. So that is why Vijayanagar Empire. When we are talking about Mughal Empire, sometimes their capital is Delhi. Sometimes they are ruling from Agra, Fatehpur Sikri. At certain points the capital city has been Lahore as well. So various capital cities, one single dynasty. That is why Mughal Empire. Is this clear? So keep these kind of things in mind. Why do we name a particular time period either on the basis of a particular city or on the basis of a dynasty? Is this clear? So now let us start our discussion on Delhi Sultanate. Here we know that there are 5 dynasties which are ruling under the Delhi Sultanate. Slave, Khilji, Tughlaq, they are going to be the prominent ones. When we talk about Sayyids and Lodhis, they were not very much successful in political sense in comparison to the earlier dynasties. When we talk about questions from Lodhis, you will not find any questions. From Sayyids, you will find a particular question and it has a logic. When we will reach there, I will tell you about that. Okay. Now, when we are talking about the dynasties, you should know about slave dynasty, you should know about Khilji dynasty, you should know about Tughlaq dynasty, the prominent sultans and their contributions. When you will discuss their contributions, in that discussion only, you are going to come across various terms that you have to remember. Okay. So now let us talk about slave dynasty. Why do we call them slave dynasty? 1206 is the year of establishment. Why are we calling them slave dynasty? It was established by one of the slaves of Muhammad Ghori. Okay. That means he did not have a biological successor of his own. He did not have a son. So one of the slaves is going to establish slave dynasty. The name was Qutbuddin Aibak. Okay. Why is there a scenario where a slave has a right which is political? We are talking about the institution of slavery, which has been so inhuman, where people did not have rights their over own bodies. So how can a slave become a ruler? When we are talking about Islamic world, the institution of slavery or ghulam is the original word that they used to use. When we are talking about Sanskrit text, dasta, das is the term that we use. When we are looking at Persian texts, ghulam is the word that is used. So when we are talking about the institution of ghulami in Central Asian context, there is domestic slavery present. That is going to be present throughout the historical development of human beings. In 19th century, you will see abolition, legal abolition of the institution of slavery. So domestic slaves are there, but there is a particular category of slaves or ghulams who were political slaves having political, administrative and cultural efficiency. So each of these sultans used to have some slaves in their lives. They were having very intimate relations with those slaves. In many cases, the relation was also sexual. Okay, so that is a very different category of slaves that we are talking about here. So these slaves are going to be politically, administratively, as well as culturally well versed. Is this clear? So keep this in mind when we are talking about ghulam or slaves here. उनको मार पीट नहीं रहे, वो domestic slavery वाले slave नहीं हैं. Is this clear? Now there is a term that you will come across, Mameluke. Mamelukes are a type of slave who were born of free parents. So their parents were free, and when they are parenting a child and the child is becoming the slave, that slave will be called Mameluke. Otherwise, the category of Ghulam will be used. All of them will be denoted as Ghulam, as slave. Is this clear? So, when we are talking about Qutbuddin Aibak, he was one of the slaves of Muhammad Ghori. He is establishing Delhi Sultanate here. He is not the only slave of Muhammad Ghori. Are others going to be happy about it? No. So he is going to have constant conflict with other slaves. So Yalduz, Kubacha, they are going to be the prominent names. Again, UPSC does not ask questions on these, but you should understand the milieu, that when a particular person is gaining political power, others are also going to be jealous because they are also ambitious, they are also capable. So they are not going to like the establishment of Delhi Sultanate by Qutbuddin Aibak. So Qutbuddin Aibak, if we talk about Aibak, Yalduz, Kobacha, they are going to be the rivals. When he is going to establish Delhi Sultanate, people in northern India, see, this is one thing which we need to keep in mind. When we are talking about North India in medieval times, there were various Rajput kingdoms who had come into existence. Now, even if they are being defeated, it does not mean that they are going to be completely uprooted. They are defeated, other rulers, other sultans are going to extend their area of influence over their territory. But when the sultan is going to become weaker, Rajputs are going to grow into rebellion and they are going to assert their independence. Is this clear? So this is a very important thing that we need to remember. That is why there is a lot of focus on Akbar's Rajput policy, because then North India is going to get the much sought after political stability. Is this clear? So remember, when it comes to Aibak, he is going to have challenges from the former slaves of Gori. At the same time, the important political powers of North India. Now, when we are talking about this particular time in economic sense, in Central Asia, important empires have grown up. We talked about decline of long distance trade with decline of Roman Empire. Now, if there is another empire which has come into existence, long distance trade will happen again. When long distance trade is happening, land route will become important. Second, the subas of Gujarat and Bengal, they will become important. I am using the term suba, that means province. UPSC has asked a question on suba as well. So, suba of Gujarat and Bengal. Again, you need to keep this in mind that geographies, when we are talking about Bengal Suba, when we are saying Gujarat Suba, the boundary is not present day boundary. Okay, back then geographies were, boundaries were different. Is this clear? Why they are important? Coastal region. And they are also going to be very prosperous. Why? Because due to long distance trade, they are going to earn huge profit. There was this saying during खिलजी period कि दिल्ली में जब उसके कुलीन जलसा करते थे तो गुजरात के जो मर्चेंट्स थे उनसे उधार लेते थे. So you can understand how economically powerful these traders are going to be. Now, whoever is going to control the Suba of Gujarat or Bengal, they are going to collect taxes on this trade which was happening. So, any ruler would want the control of Suba of Gujarat as well as of Bengal. If they are sitting in Delhi, they'll not be able to exercise centralized and direct control over these subas. That is also a practical reality. So they will appoint their representatives there. Eventually the representatives are going to rebel. They will form their own kingdom. So when the next ruler will come, that sultan is again going to go to Gujarat. They are again going to go to Bengal. When you read your medieval Indian history, and especially when you read Delhi Sultanate, you will keep studying this. That Iltutmish, he is going to Doab region, attacking that area, establishing control over that region, going to Bengal. Again you will study Balban, he is repeating the same process. Alauddin Khilji, repeating the same process. So all of them are going to go to Rajasthan, they are going to go to Eastern India, Doab region, they are going to go to Bengal, they are going to go to Malwa. So be it Balban, be it Iltutmish, be it Balban, be it Alauddin Khilji, be it Muhammad bin Tughlaq, all of them are going to repeat the same process over and over again. Why is it happening? Because there are important kingdoms in these areas as well. And if the Sultan is powerful, the Sultan will be able to exercise control over these areas. But if successor is not that capable, they are going to rise in rebellion. They are going to assert their independence. So the other Sultan who is going to become powerful, they will have to repeat the very same process. Is this clear? So keep this thing in mind. You don't have to mug it up. It is a conceptual detail that you should understand. Is this clear? So remember this. We understood the situation in Central Asia as well. First, Ghaznavid, Khwarezmi and Ghurid after them, who were fighting with each other. Muhammad Ghori realized that he will not be able to defeat the Khwarezmis, and he came to this part, and eventually Delhi Sultanate was established. We also understood that within a matter of 2 decades, Mongols are going to rise, defeating Khwarezmi Empire and establishing Mongol Empire. Is this clear? So that is the situation in Central Asia that we need to keep in mind. Now let us discuss this area. So here what will happen? Aibak will also face the same problem that we have just discussed. So he will also have to go over all these areas. See, when Gori had come, he had defeated the rulers here. But Aibak will have to go to the same process. Iltutmish will have to go to the very same process due to the reasons that I just explained. Is this clear? Now when we are talking about Kutubuddin Aibak, he is going to try to establish his area of influence over these territories. When we will talk about Khiljis, then Gujarat will come into the picture. Before that, North India, present-day Rajasthan, Malwa, the Suba of Bengal. That is going to be important. When we will come to Khiljis, Gujarat Suba will also be added. They are going to attack the areas of Deccan and southern India. They are not going to exercise direct political control over these areas. Okay? So the area of direct political control will be this. They'll keep raiding the area of present-day Deccan and southern India. They'll loot wealth from that area. They'll come back to north. When Muhammad bin Tughlaq will come, he will say that I am going to rule this as well. Okay, so he is going to directly rule the area of Deccan as well as parts of southern India. Is this clear? So that is how political history is going to develop. You just need to keep these things in mind in this very way. If you are able to understand it this way, you won't have to mug up things. Okay, UPSC is anyway not asking you the years of these attacks. So you should just understand कि भाई जब हम बात कर रहे हैं slave dynasty का, so this is the area of influence barring Gujarat. When we are talking about Khiljis, Gujarat Suba will also come under direct control, frequent raids to Deccan and south. When we are coming to Tughlaqs, then area of direct political control will be extended to Deccan and parts of south as well. Is this clear? That is one thing. Second conceptual thing that you should keep in mind is in the context of Mongols. And why am I asking you to keep it in mind in a conceptual manner? Because again, this is going to be an area from which UPSC will ask questions, and you will waste your time in mugging up things. So it's better that we understand it in conceptual manner. See, when any particular dynasty is establishing its rule, it is going to take some time to consolidate their rule. That is a very conceptual thing that we need to understand. एक रोज आए उसी रोज सब कुछ नहीं बन जाएगा. They will take some time to consolidate their power. Now, if you are consolidating your power, will you focus upon fighting a war with somebody? You will try to avoid the war as much as possible. Okay, and especially when you know that the other party is very powerful. So when we are talking about the relation between Delhi Sultanate and Mongols, we need to keep this in mind. When Iltutmish is going to rule, I'm talking about it in the context of dynasties, okay? Slave dynasty. When slave dynasty is going to rule, Mongols became very powerful. So Genghis Khan will come, Genghis Khan will defeat the Khwarezmi Empire, and he is going to establish Mongol Empire there. He is going to go to areas of present-day China. He'll also come to Indian subcontinent. Iltutmish was smart enough to understand that I should not fight with Genghis Khan. So when slave dynasty was present and the Mongols are coming, slave dynasty people were smart enough to understand that we should not agonize Mongols. So ख्वारिज़मी एम्पायर था यहाँ पे, भागता भागता प्रिंस आया दिल्ली सल्तनत. उसने इल्तुतमिश को कहा कि भाई मुझे शरण दे दो. इल्तुतमिश ने कहा नहीं हो पाएगा. ठीक है. And he did not provide shelter to Mangbarni, who was the prince of Khwarezmi Empire. Is this clear? So here what we need to understand, that slave dynasty sultan used diplomacy. He did not want to fight a war with Mongols. When we'll come to Khilji period, so this was one of the rulers, who is Iltutmish. Then another ruler, Balban, will come. What he is going to do? He is going to make various forts, and he is going to repair the old forts that were present in the frontier region. So he is not going to attack, but he is ready that if Mongols are going to attack, I will defend myself. Okay. So from diplomacy to a defensive position. When you will come to Khiljis, what Alauddin Khilji is doing? Alauddin Khilji will successfully defeat Mongols. There was one incident when he was busy in Rajasthan and Mongols came to the capital city and they occupied it for quite some time. Is this clear? Barring that particular incident, Alauddin Khilji decisively defeated Mongols various times. So that shows us how with time Delhi Sultanate power also grew and they were able to tackle a force like Mongols. Coming to the next dynasty, Tughlaq dynasty, there Muhammad bin Tughlaq will have a dream of defeating Mongols. So uska idea kya hai? Tum kya आओगे पहले मैं आऊँगा. So he is having this dream that I'll go to Central Asia and I am going to defeat the ruler there. Okay, so from diplomacy to defensive to defeating to offensive. That is the development that we see. Is this clear? So remember this development simultaneously. Now here you don't have to mug up the names. Here what you have to keep in mind, how that relationship evolved over time and how it tells us about the growing strength as well as confidence of the sultans of Delhi Sultanate. Is this clear? So remember these two things simultaneously, their relations with Mongols and how they are acquiring more and more power in Indian subcontinent. These two things, if you understand conceptually, you don't need to mug it up. You will be able to remember it very easily. And you will be able to solve questions in prelims with sheer application of the knowledge that you have. Is this much clear? Now let us move forward to some of the factual details that we cannot ignore. This is one area where we can make our understanding based on concepts. But there are some things जहाँ facts हैं और कुछ कर नहीं सकते हैं. So let us see what those facts are. So when we are talking about Qutbuddin Aibak, he is the one who ruled for a very brief period of time. He died by accident within a span of 4 years. Okay, so was he able to do something very significant? He is the one who will establish the empire. Consolidation will not happen immediately. Okay, so he is establishing the empire. He is trying to extend the area of political influence, but he'll have to deal with the other slaves of Muhammad Ghori. That is one problem. He'll have to deal with the problems at home as well. So that is one challenge that was present before him, and he was not able to successfully deal with these issues. He died very early. Does that mean he did not contribute at all? Yes or no? Did he or did he not? Contribute किया. क्या contribute किया? कुतुब मीनार. हाँ, कुछ कह रहे हैं? हाँ, वो तो बात हो गया. वो तो बात हो गया. कल्चरली क्या किया? When we are talking about his contributions in cultural sense, he is going to start making of certain monuments. He was not able to complete it, but he will start the process of construction. Have you been to Qutub complex? So did you notice that there are structures from various time periods? There are some Hindu and Jain temples. There is this iron pillar that we discussed from Gupta period, that is also present there. If you go there, you will find a particular mosque. So if you go to this, there are temples and there is this iron pillar. Then if you go inside, you will find that there is this particular Quwwat-ul-Islam mosque. And here you will find Qutub Minar. To enter this, you have to pass through Alai Darwaza, Alai door. Okay. And on this side, there is unfinished Alai Minar. And here you will find a lot of tombs, a lot of madrasas, and presence of another mosque. Okay, so if you look at the Qutub complex, you come across architecture from various time periods. We look at architectural remains from Gupta period. We look at architectural marvels which Qutbuddin Aibak tried to construct. Iltutmish is going to take this particular work forward. We also see structures being constructed by Alauddin Khilji. So Alai Minar, Alai Darwaza, they are going to be constructed by him as well. That is why we called it a Qutub complex. Is this clear? So here, when we are talking about Qutub complex, Qutbuddin Aibak started the construction of Quwwat-ul-Islam मस्जिद एंड कुतुब मीनार. किसके नाम पे है कुतुब मीनार? हमने पढ़ा है कुतुबुद्दीन ऐबक ने बनवाना शुरू किया था. कल्चरल स्टेटमेंट आ गया एग्जाम में, बाय लॉजिक वील से कुतुबुद्दीन ऐबक नहीं बनाया होगा, और कंफ्यूज करने के लिए शायद यही स्टेटमेंट दें कि named after him. But there was a Sufi saint, Qutbuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki. It was named after him. Okay, so we need to keep these things in mind. These things are of cultural importance. Okay, so he is the one who started the construction of Qutub Minar, but Qutub Minar is not named after him. Qutub Minar is named after a Sufi saint, Qutbuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki. He constructed Quwwatul-Islam mosque as well. Is this clear? So keep this in mind. When we are talking about mosque, when we are using a term minar, we were not using these terms earlier. We have studied so far, we did not use the term darwaza. We did not use the term minar. That means it is a different architectural style which is developing in Indian subcontinent now. So we see introduction of Indo-Islamic architecture in India too. What are the features of Indo-Islamic architecture? थोड़ा सा बोल के चुप क्यों हो जाते हैं, बताइए. ओके, डूम, मीनार, हाँ, इवेंचुअली, हाँ, ओके. ब्रिक्स तो पहले भी है, तो हड़प्पा में भी कर रहे हैं. जाली, लैटिस वर्क, Anything else? See, let us remember it in two ways. One, different kind of architecture will be present. Second, different kind of designing pattern will be present. Okay, so when we are talking about Indo-Islamic architecture, what these people are going to make? These people are going to construct mosques. Along with mosques, there will be educational institutes attached to it. They will be called madrasas. Okay, so that is going to be present. They are going to construct minars. In ancient period, we were talking about pillars. Here we will see various minars being constructed. We will see construction of various darwazas. For example, here we see Alai Darwaza. When you will come to Mughal period, Buland Darwaza, Rumi Darwaza. So this is also going to be one kind of architecture that will be introduced in Indo-Islamic architecture. So there is a significant shift towards different architectural monuments that are being created. They are going to create huge palaces. They are going to create various cities as well. Okay, so this is going to be a shift. Now if we talk, tombs will be there. Because when we are talking about these people, they are going to bury their dead. If you talk about Islam, in Islam people bury their dead. So over that they are going to make tombs. Okay, so that is another addition that we will see. Then what else are we going to see? Change in the pattern of decoration. If you look at the basic philosophy of Islam, in Islam idol worship is not allowed. तो वहाँ पे क्या है, बुत परस्ती को हराम माना जाता है. तो वहाँ क्या होगा कि when you are constructing, when you are decorating your architecture, there also there will be a striking absence of human figures. Does that mean they are not going to decorate their architecture at all? No, they are also going to decorate the architecture. The decorating pattern will be different. What they are going to do? So they are going to make floral patterns. They are going to put ayats from Quran, verses from Quran. So ayat mane verse. Okay. So ayats from Quran on the walls. They are going to make floral and leafy patterns. They are going to make intricate lattices, jali. Because in Islam, light is very important. So that will also show the importance of light in Islam. So Noor is the word that is used. Okay, so when we look at any kind of architecture, we also need to understand the philosophy behind it. Be it in Hinduism, be it in Jainism, Buddhism, Islam, in all these religions, this is one thing which is going to be common, that their philosophy also impacted the architectural pattern. And UPSC keeps asking question on this particular theme in mains, not in prelims, in mains. Okay, so here we see a particular kind of architecture where we see change in decoration pattern, change in the kind of buildings that they constructed. They are also going to make arches. They are going to make bigger डूम्स. तो दरवाजा बनाते हैं तो उस पे ऐसे करके बनाएंगे, पहले बनाते थे तो ऐसे करके बनाते थे. ठीक है, सो दीज काइंड ऑफ चेंजेस आर ऑल्सो गोइंग टू बी इंट्रोड्यूस्ड. इज दिस क्लियर? सो इट इज स्टार्टिंग विद होम. Qutbuddin Aibak, he started the construction of Quwwatul Islam mosque. He started the construction of Qutub Minar. He constructed Dhai Din Ka Jhopda. So a lot of structures are being constructed as well. I hope this is clear. So cultural contributions you can remember. Now let us move forward to the successor. When Iltutmish is going to come, he is going to reign for 26 years. You don't have to mug up 26 years. Why I told it outrightly? To make you understand he had a significant amount of time to consolidate Delhi Sultanate. Is this clear? So what he is going to do? Challenges which will lie before him will be political, will be administrative, will be economic, and will be cultural. So all these challenges are going to lie before him as a Sultan. So when we are talking about Iltutmish, he was also a slave of Kutubuddin Aibak and a son-in-law of Kutubuddin Aibak. For a brief period of time, there was a ruler, Aram Shah. You must have read about him, but he is not going to be able to rule. Iltutmish is going to come to power. What Iltutmish is going to do, Iltutmish will defeat Yalduz, Kubacha. He is going to deal with them successfully. What else he will do? He is going to go to Rajasthan. He is going to defeat the rulers there, to Doab region, to the Suba of Bengal. That is one thing that he is going to do. So political influence, okay, that is how he is going to deal with the political challenge by winning over all these areas. Now you have won over a particular area. How are you going to consolidate your rule there? Okay, that is the way of tackling the political power. Okay, you have tackled the political power. Now what you will do? You need to come up with an administrative machinery to consolidate your rule. Now when we are talking about the Sultan will need to have a group of people at the court to advise him and for proper functioning of the administration at the center. Second thing, the Sultan will need to come to a strategy through which he can collect the taxes. Okay, that is the other challenge. How he is going to deal with it? He is going to make Turke Chehelgani, a group of 40 nobles. Okay, so Turke Chehelgani, a group of 40 nobles whom are Turks. That is why we are calling Turke Chehelgani. So he is going to consolidate his nobility, people who are going to be influential at court, who are going to advise him in various matters. Okay, that will be one thing. There are going to be other administrative officials as well, and we'll talk about them together. When we'll complete Delhi Sultanate, तो एक ही साथ administrative post को वहाँ पे revise कर लेंगे. Okay, that is one change that he is going to introduce. Now, how is he going to collect the taxes? Ikhtedari. So, Ikhtedari system he is going to introduce. Is it indigenous to India? No. It is coming from Central Asia. See, the concept might sound similar because in every area of the world, people faced more or less similar challenges. So they are going to evolve similar strategies also. But when we are talking about this term, when we are talking about this institution, Iltutmish is taking it from Central Asia and introducing it here. What he'll do, he is going to grant Ikhta, a piece of land to the officials. Okay, what the officials are going to do? Collect revenue for him, maintain some troops. Is this clear? A part of this collected revenue, their salary, a part will go to the maintenance of the troops, and the remaining portion will be sent to the Sultan. Is this clear? So Ikhta is a piece of land which was granted to the officials. Is this clear? So various Ikhtidars are going to be there. What they are going to do? They will contact the Zamindars who were in power traditionally. See, this is another thing which we need to keep in mind, that they are not altering the basic administrative structure of North India. They are becoming the rulers at the center, and they are going to contact the traditional administrative machinery for collection of taxes. This is what British will change. Here, the traditional administrative machinery is going to be present. Is this clear? So they'll contact the zamindars, they'll further contact, zamindars will further contact the village headman. This same structure of tax collection had existed earlier. It is going to exist during this time as well. Here one terminology you will find in the context of village headman, khut or muqaddam. So that is a terminology that we should keep in mind, khut, muqaddam. Is that clear? So keep that in mind. Now, this is how he is going to consolidate the administration at center as well as in the empire that he had established. Is this clear? Remember the terminology, remember the institutions. Okay. Now let us come to the economic part. So he has to collect the revenue. That is one thing that we need to understand. So here Iqtidari system has been introduced. Now here, remember Sita Bhumi or Sita land? What was that? That was Tridhan. Sita Bhumi or Sita land. Land from where the production directly went to the royal treasury. So it was land belonging to the state. That is the same concept here. The term has changed, Khalisa. So Khalisa land, land of the state. Ikhta, the land which has been given to the official. Is this clear? So that is what we need to remember in economy. The taxes are going to be the crops, new crops are not introduced. When we are talking about irrigation method, Arhatta is a system that is going to be introduced. So Persian wheel, जैसे हम पानी भरते हैं अगर कुएं से तो ऐसे करके रस्सी से निकालते थे. So people used to pull that, and that is how they were getting the water outside of well. It required a lot of effort, it required a lot of time. Now imagine there is a wheel. यहाँ पे ऐसे आपने रोप डाला, आसानी से पानी ऊपर आया, and it is going to facilitate the irrigation system, reducing the time which was required, reducing the effort of the people who were doing irrigation. Okay. Now what will happen eventually? Surplus production will increase. Why? Because irrigation facility is better. Is this clear? So that is one change that has come. Arhatta, that means Persian wheel, which facilitated the irrigation during Delhi Sultanate. Is this clear? Remember this terminology when we are talking about economic changes. जी. Persian wheel. हाँ. पर्शिया सेंट्रल एशिया में ही तो है ना, तो वहां से आया है तो सेंट्रल एशिया का प्रोडक्ट है, लेकिन क्योंकि पर्शिया से आया है स्पेसिफिकली इसलिए उसको पर्शियन व्हील कहते हैं. ठीक है, चलें. So Arhatta will be another term that you should remember. See, wherever you are coming across a new term, you should remember that from prelims perspective. Is this clear? When we are talking about land tax, there is another term that is used, kharaj. So kharaj is the land tax that was being collected by people, being collected by the state from people. Is this clear? So kharaj is going to be the land tax. This is one thing that you need to remember when it comes to agriculture. Pastoralism going to remain the same. When we are talking about craft production, if there is more surplus production, there will be a group of people who are going to be involved in craft production, leading to long distance trade again. With whom? Prominently with Central Asia. Is this clear? So this is another change which you will witness. Now, when we are talking about trade here, Iltutmish is going to introduce two kind of coins. One will be called tanka, that is going to be silver coin. Jeetal, that is going to be called copper coin. So you should remember these two terminologies, tanka and jeetal, coins being used during Delhi Sultanate. Introduced by, क्या हुआ? इन्होंने नहीं किया, इन्होंने ये दो किया है, टंका और जीतल. ठीक है. So this is something that is being introduced by Iltutmish. In economic aspect, you need to remember these changes. You need to remember the terminologies from the prelims perspective. Now, now let us come to the cultural challenges that was before sultan. What is going to be the cultural challenge? That he is a person who is practicing Islam and who is going to rule over a large population which was comprised of Hindus. So that is going to be a challenge. Why this was a challenge? Why did we not talk about it in a challenging aspect when we were discussing rulers of ancient India? वहाँ पे भी तो था कि भाई बुद्धिस्ट किंग है, जैन किंग है, और no, that is not a correct explanation. When we are talking about the idea of Islamic empire, the answer lies there. Okay, so when Islam arose, in one of the classes, I told you about it, that Islam is spreading both as a religious as well as a political philosophy. So wherever these people went, they established an Islamic empire. What do we mean by an Islamic empire? An empire which is ruled by Shariat. What is Shariat? Shariat is Islamic law. So what will be expected from these people when Caliph is sitting in Central Asia? Caliph will expect that Iltutmish or these rulers will also rule according to Shariat. That is where the problem lies. Okay, so what happened here? There will be a cultural challenge before Iltutmish. What he said, and see, when it comes to religion, Shariat is Islamic law, which is also giving you rules in political lives and rules in private lives of individuals. So all kind of laws are present in Shariat. Now Qazi or ulema. Who are ulemas? People who are well versed in Shariat laws. जैसे हम ancient India में use करते थे term पुरोहित, यहाँ हम term use करेंगे ulema. The singular of ulema will be alim. So ulema will pressurize Iltutmish to rule according to Shariat. What Iltutmish told them? That we are like salt in the sea. We should try to dissolve ourselves. We should not rule according to Shariat. And this is where the break is present. That the ruler is when light है ना? So when they are offering Friday prayers, when they are offering the namaz on Friday, they are offering that namaz, they are reading the khutbah in the name of the Caliph, but they are not ruling according to Shariat. That is one thing that we need to remember. Shariat will remain relevant in private sphere of Muslim population. When it comes to justice, justice will be given to Muslim population according to Shariat. When we talk about Hindus, they will be given justice on the basis of Shastric tradition. Is this clear? So we need to understand this change as well. What was the challenge which lied before Iltutmish and how he tackled with that challenge. Is this clear? Remember the terminologies in the course of discussion. Ulema, alim, Shariat, Caliph, khutbah. These things we should remember. Is this clear? चलो, अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. So this is what Iltutmish is doing, and these are the challenges. Now there is one other tax, jizya, which will be imposed upon people. क्या होता है जजिया? किस पर लगाते हैं? उसमें कुछ ऐसा गलत नहीं है, इसीलिए पूछा, because this is a misconception. When we are talking about jizya, it is imposed upon non-Muslims. They can be Hindus, they can be Buddhists, they can be Jain, they can be Christians, they can belong to any other religion except Islam. Okay, so jizya is a tax which was imposed upon non-Muslims. When we are saying non-Muslims, that means it is a religious tax. Okay, it is people are being taxed because of a different religion. And here there is another term, zimmi. तो प्रोटेक्शन के लिए टैक्स कर रहे हैं, आप जिम्मी हैं हमारे, जिम्मेदारी वर्ड होता है ना, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, वो यहीं से आता है, ठीक है। तो jizya is a tax which was imposed. Again, if you go to the nitty-gritties of this tax, it was not levied upon Brahmins, it was not levied upon women, children or disabled people. Okay? So again, idea क्या है, जिसके पास पैसा है, यहाँ पर ये आइडिया होता था, because these were the population who were not supposed to earn. And when we are talking about Brahmins, they were a respected religious category. There are going to be rulers who are going to extend the tax on Brahmins as well, like Firoz Shah Tughlaq. But in general, it did not include the category of Brahmins. Is there a particular tax which is imposed upon Muslims? Which one? Zakat. Okay, zakat is a tax which Muslims used to pay. So understand these terminologies, remember them from prelims perspective, jizya and zakat. Okay. Now let us move forward to another challenge that Iltutmish was facing. He had quite a few sons, but he did not believe in their capability. The Mongol point I have already explained, that is why I am not repeating it here. Iltutmish did not offer shelter to Mangbarni, a Khwarezmi prince, because he did not want to incur the wrath of Genghis Khan, a Mongol ruler. So he is using the idea of diplomacy to protect Delhi Sultanate from Genghis Khan. Does that mean that Genghis Khan did not cross the boundaries of Indian subcontinent? He did. He did not come to Delhi Sultanate. Okay? So this is the technical difference that we need to remember. Now, let us come to the issue of succession. So when we are looking at Iltutmish, he seems to be a person who had a very open mind. When we are looking at this aspect, especially, what he is saying, he is saying that my sons are not capable to handle such an empire which is still nascent, जो शुरू हो रहा है अभी मैंने इसको consolidate किया है. He said, my daughter Razia Sultana, Razia is capable of handling this responsibility, and he nominated Razia as his successor. Now, if you look at the norms of succession, he is challenging the norms of succession at the very start. Okay, other people are not going to like it, be it the ulema class or be it the nobility. Ulema, for which reason? Conservative people, कि भाई ये औरत होकर के कोर्ट में आएगी, उनका आइडिया ये होगा, ठीक है. सो दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू बी कंफर्टेबल विद इट. नोबिलिटी, तो वो ये बोलेंगे कि हम इनसे डायरेक्शन लेंगे. दे विल नॉट बी कंफर्टेबल विद द आइडिया ऑफ रजिया बिकमिंग द नेक्स्ट सुल्ताना as well. So Iltutmish is going to incur opposition from ulema as well as the nobility group. Somehow he was able to convince them, and specifically the class of nobility. How? See, the nobility will think in their own way. They'll think ki chalo, she is a woman, we'll be able to control her easily. And that is how they are going to accept Razia as the successor. Okay, and here we see a woman ruling in her own name, not because she was chosen the successor by nobility, but because she was nominated the successor by her own father. Okay, so we see such exceptions, but they remain exceptions. When we are looking at other women in ruling capacity, most of them are queen regents. They are not ruling in her own name. I told you about Didda from Kashmir. Kalhan, in his Raj Tarangini, has written at length about Didda. So what is he writing? कि उसका बेटा है, पहले उसके नाम पे रूल कर रही है. Then when he is turning to an age where he can rule on in his own name, उसने मरवा दिया उसको. फिर किसके नाम पे रूल करेगी? उसका उससे जो छोटा होगा माइनर के नाम पे रूल करेगी. And this is how she ruled for more than 4 decades. So power corrupts everyone. It does not require a specific gender. That is also one thing that we can learn here. But apart from that, we also see that even when she was capable, Kalhan himself writes that Didda is capable of ruling, and she is more capable than any other ruler of her time. The only fault that she has is that she is a woman. This is what he is saying. I am not saying it. Kalhan is saying that. So he is acknowledging that she is a very good ruler, but she is acknowledging it. He is acknowledging it grudgingly. Okay. So this is the society that we are talking about, and here Razia Sultana became a ruler in her own name. Okay, so she is a very important figure in that context, even though she ruled for a very brief time. So she is going to rule for 4 years and then she was killed. Okay, now when we are talking about Razia, she was a very capable administrator. People rose in rebellion at various places thinking that she is a woman. We have our own chance now to declare ourselves independent. She was able to defeat them at points. She was able to convince them at points. And she realized that these Turkish people who are part of Turkish Chehelgani, they are so powerful that they are trying to control me. What she started doing, she did two things. She started coming to court wearing kullai and kabbai. For us, what becomes important? Story is interesting, but for us, kullai and kabbai becomes important. What is kullai? Long cap. What is kabbai? Long coat. So this was the attire that men were supposed to wear in court. Razia started wearing kabbai and kullai. Both the ulema class as well as nobility are going to be irritated with her. She started addressing the people directly. Okay, she started promoting non-Turks in her nobility. So there is this post of Amire Ahur. Amire Ahur is a person who looks after the cavalry. Horses were important war animal. She promoted a non-Turk to the post of Amire Ahur. Okay, so Amire Ahur term हमारे लिए important है. What is happening in this story? People are not going to like this as well, and there were a lot of conspiracies, and at some time she was able to evade it as well, but eventually she was killed. Okay, so that is how her story ended. For us, three terms are important from our examination perspective: Kabai, Kullai and Amire Ahur. Now after her, a series of incapable rulers are going to come. The next ruler who will become important for us will be Balban. Okay, so Balban is going to kill the reigning sultan, and he declared himself the next sultan. What he had realized, that these people are not focusing a lot on strengthening the position of sultan. That is why people are rebelling. People should be fearful of the figure of sultan, and he is coming with a policy of blood and iron. Okay, so that is the trait which Balban had. So wherever rebellions had happened, he is going to win over all these areas. Again going to Rajasthan, going to East, going to Doab, to the Suba of Bengal, Malwa. He is going to establish, yes. A love story is associated with everyone. Razia's story is talked about a lot because she was a woman and she had a love affair. Probably she had a love affair with somebody. Yes, Yakut. Kings had harems full of women. Nobody talks about that. Okay. So that is also one way of delegitimizing the rule of a woman. And you will see this true in case of a lot of female rulers, be it them being a sultana like Razia or being the queen regent. Okay, so that is, yes, of course, one story that has been associated with the character of Razia. Yes. He was a non-Turk who belonged to the category of a slave. All of them, the dynasty itself is a slave dynasty. We can discuss it after the class. Okay. Yes. Okay, so that is why non-Turk. Okay? कहानी जो है वो बाद में डिस्कस कर लेंगे, क्या उसकी प्रेम कहानी है। बाकी अभी आते हैं जो हमारे एग्जामिनेशन के पर्सपेक्टिव से ज़रूरी है, ठीक है। चलें, सो व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट बलबन, हियर अगेन ही इज़ गोइंग टू एस्टैब्लिश द पॉलिटिकल control over the lost areas. He is using a particular term, Mawa, for the rebels. Again, term becomes important for us. So he is going to rebel the Mawas. From where Mawali term comes? Mawali हो क्या? इतना तमाशा लगा रखा है, इतना रकस क्रिएट कर रखा है. Okay, so he is going to curb the Mawas as well, and he is going to construct various forts and repair the older forts to deal with the Mongols. He is going to be on the defensive line. Okay, so that is the political development that we know. He is also going to continue the Ikhtidari process. Okay, so he is continuing with the institution of Ikhtidari. What he is going to do? He is again going to place people of his own choice on those posts. Now he had also realized that the problem lies with Turke Chehelgani as well. When we are making a group of people and we are giving them significant power, they are going to do their own politics. So he abolished Turke Chehelgani. Okay, and he is going to exercise absolute authority when it comes to decision making. That is one aspect of Balban's policy. Abolished Turke Chehelgani and started exercising absolute authority. What else is he doing? Here terms become important for us again. He is saying, I am Jille Lahi. What do we mean by Jille Lahi? खुदा की परछाई है वो ये कह रहा है, ठीक है, that I am the shadow of the God. Now think about it. He is using religion for his own benefit, and this is what rulers belonging to any religion can do. It's not only true about one particular religion. We see rulers use religion to legitimize their rule. So he is saying that I am Jillilahi. He is saying that I am also Niyabate Khudai. That means I am representative of God on earth. So what you will do, he'll focus upon the tripartite relationship between God, Sultan and subjects. So he's saying that I am Niyabate Khudai, I am Jillelahi, so the way you respect your God, you should respect me as well. That is the way of acquiring legitimacy, and that is a way to make people not question his rule at all. Okay, so these terms become important for us. Apart from that, what he is doing, see, think about it in a very simple manner. Let's say if we are sitting on a chai ka tapri, we are very casual, जब हम बात कर रहे हैं दोस्तों के साथ में chill होते हैं बहुत. Now we are entering Starbucks. We become conscious. The language might shift instantly कि यहाँ बैठ के vernacular language में भी बात कर रहे हो, हिंदी में भी बात कर रहे हो, वहाँ जाते हैं अंग्रेजी बोलना ज़रूरी हो जाता है. And we do acquire a certain body language at places which are considered elitist. Okay, so that is a change that people witness, and that is a psychological shift. Sometimes we don't realize it ourselves, that how our body language changes at a particular place. And this is what Balban is doing. वो क्या कह रहा है कि बहुत simple सा quote है तो लोग बहुत casual रहेंगे. What I should do, I should make the quote lavish. I should not show any kind of emotion in quote so that people are afraid of me. Okay, so he is going to introduce these kind of changes as well, and he is going to make the court very lavish. Now he is saying when anyone is coming in the court, that person should do sijda and payabos. What is this sijda? That you are going to bow down before the sultan. That is a way of salutation. What is payabos? Kissing the feet of the sultan. So the ultimate subjugation that one can subject the other person to. That is what this person is doing, introducing the practice of sijda and payabos in court. So again, this term becomes important for us. We need to understand it in a story-like format so it remains interesting for us and we are able to remember it easily. But we also need to understand what we need to pick up from our examination perspective. Is this clear? So Niyabat-e Khudai, Jillillah and Sijda Payabos. These are the changes that we need to remember. He had a very strong spy system. क्योंकि कितना भी आप control कर लें, there will be confident people conspiring against you. So one should know about it prior hand. And you will see any strong empire will focus upon their spy system. It is true about ancient India. It is true about medieval India. It will be true during colonial rule as well. So he is also going to have a very strong spy system, and whoever was conspiring against him, he is going to kill them. माफी नहीं है, मार देंगे सीधा, ठीक है? So that other people are afraid of him. Okay. He is also introducing a festival of Navroz. That is a Persian, that again Persian tradition, which he is introducing in his court. That will be banned by Aurangzeb. It does not mean that it is not present in India. Now it is still present. Parsi people celebrate their New Year on Navroz. Okay, so he introduced the festival of Navroz in his court as well. So these are the changes that we should know when we are talking about Balban. Now Balban became so powerful. He became so powerful that it was so difficult to fill into his shoes. So of course his successors are not going to be very capable, and after his death, within a matter of few years, the slave dynasty is going to end, and then Khilji dynasty will come up. Okay, do we have time? Okay, so we can stop the class here, and we can continue with Khilji dynasty tomorrow. Is there any doubt that you want to ask? Clear hai sari cheezein? So let us complete this segment first, then we'll look at the questions. Okay, I'll get uploaded a few more PDFs probably by today, and you should go through that as well for revision purpose. Okay, or whatever is being uploaded as synopsis of class or what you are writing down, that is going to be your material for revision. Okay, have a good day.